Okay, this is another episode of Acting Lessons for Real Life. I was going to remind everyone that my acting lessons for real life, I haven't done one for quite a long time, but there must be getting close to 15 of them. And if you just look in the tags, my name and acting lessons for real life, you will see there is a bunch of very good content there that you can use and abuse. In other words, it's there so that you can have a better experience and you can help create better experiences for others. The reason I'm in bed is because after my afternoon walk and session, I had something to eat. I came upstairs to change my shirt so I could have a new costume, and I was sleepy tired. I don't want to get into too much of a new acting lesson for in real life, other than if you find that your production team has ignored every last one of your uh, acting lessons for real life and has continued down their own path, which is basically very tiresome. If you had a network series and you had the production crew I have, um, well, it's difficult because I find it tiresome. I find it very repetitive. And unlike some of the other consciousness commentators who get Feel Good just said, I don't care how many likes I get on my YouTube video. And I look and, some of the commentators get, like 675,000 views on one of their commentary tapes. And I've got about 17,000 views over 2,000 tapes. Um, so I just don't get the viewership that the others get. And Phil Good said, well, it would just be egoic to look to see. I'm going to convert my 17,000 possible views, because no one knows if they watched, 30 seconds and said they didn't like it. I'm going to convert it into another thing called How to Get My Viewership Higher as a acting lesson for real life. And that would be to ask you all if you were being shadow banned, not by Facebook's AI, but if you were being shadow banned by your own production team. Why would anybody be so stupid to make an ongoing series of videos, directly participating in them, and then shadow banning them? In other words, making sure that they weren't released to the general population. Would that sound strange? You haven't met my very strange production team. Anyhow, if you are watching my video, I would say that somehow you have become either targeted by my production team or you have slipped through the cracks of their intense filter. The point of the matter is, we do make very interesting videos here. I do suffer from demonic pain every day, and I live through it. It seems like a lot of the other color commentators that get 675,000 views, uh, well, none of them mention the amount of pain that they go through. And looking at them, they don't seem to be terribly old. You know, I mean, some, maybe that's not true. Maybe some of them are older. But some of the popular ones are like maybe 26 to 30. And yeah, it's true, they've got all the right information. I mostly, correct them on odd things, but for the most part, they're pretty much spot on. So why is it that, some older people, older than me even, haven't got any of these messages in, I don't know, 75 years? And some young one, some young punk that comes onto the planet, uh, and instantly becomes like an enlightenment guru. The great puzzlement might come down to Delores Cannon, the great hypnotist, not a stage hypnotist, but a real hypnotist, according to her story, who hypnotized thousands of people. And she came up with the same information when everyone was in deep trance, and that is there were three waves of volunteers who incarnated on planet Earth since World War II, because the planet was crying out and saying, we just had a nuclear incident and it looks like we're heading towards a nuclear Armageddon. And what we need is people with higher consciousnesses to come and be incarnated on the planet to raise the frequency so we can avoid Armageddon and destroying the planet. The first wave would have started coming after 1945. And Delores said they mostly came, she said, a lot of them committed suicide because they couldn't handle it here. And a lot of other ones locked themselves up in log cabins away from humans because they found humans so difficult to work with. I'm going to guess if I am one of these volunteers, and I don't know, I have no memories of anything before I was born. So I've had some silly visions given to me, but I don't believe they were true. I don't know anything about the truth of what I might have been before. I was just had some stupid things sent to me that I highly discount. But, in my age group, I would possibly be the second wave of volunteers, possibly the tail end of the first wave of volunteers. But the new ones who are, 26 to 30 would be the third wave of volunteers. What has changed for the third wave of volunteers? I would say schools are much different for them. Education has pretty much the same curriculum, but the teachers are quite a bit different. They still have to deal with problematic children, but I think the teachers are more conscious than the teachers I had when I was a boy. That is, and when I was a boy, sure, people knew about racism. No one knew about homophobia when I was a boy. The word didn't exist. So even among teachers, homophobia was actually, it wasn't frowned upon at all among teachers. And I would say, in general, teachers of school children are probably among the most conscious in any civilization. So that shows you we have come a hell of a long way. And when I was a boy, if I was, let's say beginning of the second wave of volunteers to the planet in this scenario, the people that were born right after World War II were born into, if you fit the cookie cutter mold, I suppose, I don't know. It just seems to me that the first wave, no wonder they had so much difficulty. I'm trying to get at the fact of whatever was going on just before World War II that led up to this enormous slaughter, enormous, enormous sacrifice of the youth of the planet, and the sacrifice of, so much, so much. That level of consciousness really did need a boost. What they experienced in those days, did they have a sense of right and wrong about things? I don't know. The racism was unbelievable. Institutionalized racism. For example, if you were a white pilot, you were automatically an officer in the United States Armed Forces. If you were a black pilot, you could not be an officer. As far as I can remember, anyway, they said, that there were black pilots, but they were basically left as enlisted men. Were there any officers that were black in World War II? It's possible, but it would be very few. But it was institutionalized racism. Also, in World War II, if you were of Japanese descent and you were a Japanese American, it didn't exempt you from the war if you were of the right age. They would just send you to Europe. In other words, if you were Japanese descent, you were not allowed to fight the Japanese. I think if you're Italian or German background, uh, you were treated much less likely to be, sympathetic to the enemy. So the racism was really endemic. Um, I don't know. We still got a long way to go. And all I'm saying is that for some young people that seem to have got these messages in their 20s, how many of my friends got these messages in their 20s? Uh, Zero. Zero people, when I look back. I can think of one person who didn't drink alcohol, which was a big surprise to me. But I don't think that they were, I just don't get the feeling that they were really into meditation. We were not even taught the word meditation. No one knew what meditation was when I was young. No one knew. Zero people knew. Zero people I knew meditation. So the young people that seem to be so bright and so advanced, um, clearly the two waves ahead of you have done a lot of heavy lifting. And I think the young people that are enlightened, maybe it's a bad word, but I mean they are doing good work. They're channeling the right information for the population. There's no doubt about it. But I don't think they have given much thought to the two waves of volunteers that came before them. And seriously, if you're young and in your 20s, you've got major issues with capitalism. They talk about the millennials and having such trouble. Yes, you have got incredible troubles with capitalism. That is the number one problem on the planet is capitalism and corporatism. So that's probably what makes your life tough, because it certainly still makes my life tough. And a lot of other people who have made it in a capitalist society are really looking forward to their retirement so that they don't have to deal with it anymore. People my age are basically looking to retire early and check out because they've had it. They have had it. They have had it. So the first and second waves of volunteers, if this story is true, had a super hard time compared to the millennials. And I'm not belittling the fact that you're having a hard time with the economy because it is the number one problem. But comparatively, I think the first wave had a horrible, horrible time here. And Dolores Cannon confirms it with what she said. I told you already. And the second wave had a really tough time. So if you're in your 20s and you think, well, why isn't it that the old people on the planet just don't seem to get consciousness? They just don't seem to get meditation. They seem so old fashioned. It's because if you had any idea of what they've been through in their lifetimes, I think it would have shattered you. You've had it so easy compared to what previous waves of volunteers have had. It would have shattered you. And that's why the people you see wandering around, the old people, that are just like, they seem hardened. It's because they've been through a war. It's been their whole life they've been through a war. And if you think of, I don't know if you ever watch old black and white movies about World War II, about the soldiers that just in a few years went from being 20 to looking like they were 50. It's because that's what they went through. And the older people on the planet, why are they so hard to wake up? Traumatized, severely traumatized, and brainwashed, and just beat. In other words, not only beat by this world, but tired right out. And if you don't find these generations to be very responsive to things that young people are responsive to, it's because they are completely worn out. How can you help the old people in their living? For the most part, if they're your parents and your grandparents and your great grandparents, love them. Love them despite the fact they're very difficult people. That a lot of times you can't be around them. A lot of times you find you just need to take a break because you just can't handle them. Love them as much as you can.